Hello and welcome to our virtual question and answer session on the County Council's budget for next year. It's virtual because of COVID, although we would love to have open meetings and get around the county. This is probably the best way to do it given the current circumstances. My name's Glenn Sanderson, I'm leader of the County Council. And first of all, I'd like to thank all of you who have already taken part, asked a question, or put in your response to the consultation. You can find out more about our budget proposals on our website or by watching the local area councils where we are meeting online, and they're taking place over the next couple of weeks. And our online consultation is open for you to have your say for another few weeks till January the 21st. So before we go on, I'd like to introduce you to our two other panelists this evening, our Cabinet Member for Corporate Resources and Deputy Leader, Richard Wearmouth, and our Executive Director of Finance, Jan Willis. Richard.
Thanks, Glenn. As you say, it's been another challenging year for our businesses and residents and also for our council, with significant budget pressures due to increased demand across our services, and as well as obviously the impact of COVID-19. But looking forward to the next financial year, there will be a continued focus on economic recovery. There'll be an emphasis on delivering a green and sustainable future for our county, and our climate change action plan will drive everything that we do. Amongst the exciting plans for the year ahead is attracting investment and high quality jobs to our county, including anchoring the British Volt Gigafactory at Camas, and as well as the wider development of the Northumberland Energy Park around that site. Delivering the Borderlands Place programme alongside other initiatives to drive rural economic growth. Deliver the Energising Blythe programme investment, including securing levelling up funding and to deliver town regeneration across the county. Reopening the Northumberland line and developing an economic corridor along its route. Securing funding for major road and junction improvements in the county, including pushing for improvements at Moor Farm Roundabout, southeast of Cramlington, the A1 dualling, and construction of the Blythe Relief Road. And of course, we're delivering school builds across the county at Berwick, in Seaton Valley, and James Calvert, Spence and Amble. And we're investing in our parks and open spaces and public conveniences, as well as delivering additional town centre parking.
Jan.
So like all councils, we have continued to be on the front line of responding to COVID, and we have had to adapt the way that we're delivering all of those vital services so that we're able to support residents, particularly our most vulnerable, and support businesses. And all local authorities continue to operate in a period of financial uncertainty, and there's a number of factors that are driving that. Clearly, there are ongoing significant budget pressures, and in particular around areas like waste collection and disposal and social care. Like all households, we're facing very steeply increasing costs. Some of that is being driven by population change, but we also face very significant pay and price inflation. And of course, we have to deal with the ongoing impact of COVID-19 on both our expenditure and our income. And that's all in the context of continuing pressures on national public finances more generally. We do have to live within our means, and we do have to set a balanced budget. And for the 22-23 financial year, that means that we have to find about £9.7 million worth of savings. So those savings have been identified, and wherever possible, we are looking to achieve savings by doing things differently, by delivering services in the most efficient way, and avoiding reductions to our frontline services wherever possible.
Yeah, thanks, Jan. Richard, that's a useful overview of where we are at present. As I said before, we are really grateful for you, our residents, to have an input into the budget consultation. It's only right that you do, because it's your money that is involved here. So it's really important that we know how you feel your money should be spent, and also what are your priorities? Where do you think we should be spending more or perhaps less? So all of these responses that you give us will be fed into the key decisions before the budget comes before the full council at the end of February for agreement. So again, thank you very much for being involved. So can we move on to questions now? The first question is from Alan in Ashington, who asks, why can't we invest more in town centres? And he's particularly interested in Ashington. Richard, could you respond to this one, please?
Thanks, Glenn. So first of all, redevelopment and regeneration in our town centres is really important for the administration and for all councillors, I know, and we're doing a lot already, whether it's places like Blythe, where we've attracted town deal funding and future high street funding, Hexham, where we've got money in to a heritage action zone, or indeed many of our other towns that are benefiting from the Borderlands inclusive growth deal, where we've got mini town deals. Ashington is a really important town and community in Northumberland, and we've got a plan there as well. We've got work that's ongoing to redevelop the town centre. As people will know, it's taken a little bit longer than we would like, mostly due to delays around COVID and so on, but that work will progress in the year to come. We've got as well, though, a really exciting prospect of pulling together a town deal for Ashington as well, which will see millions of pounds invested in that town, taking advantage of the Northumberland line coming in and finally bringing passenger rail services back to Ashington after over half a century of absence. So exciting times ahead for Ashington, Glenn.
Good. Thank you, Richard. We've had some questions around climate change, and I think if I may, I'll just answer these, because obviously this is something that's close to all our hearts in the council. Made that clear a few years ago when a number of councils were being petitioned to declare a climate emergency. We didn't want to be petitioned. We wanted to actually voluntarily come together with environment groups and say, yes, we do agree that we've got to take action, and then put our money where our mouth was. And that's what we've done. Climate change is hugely important for the world, for the county, for all of us, and for our children and our children's children. So it's important that we, as a local leader, take significant action, and that's what we've done. So we've made a number of key decisions, largely around spending, to ensure that we do fund our commitments properly. So, for example, installing renewable energy resources on our council buildings. We've put in a significant amount of money into home insulation, which reduces emissions, of course, but also helps residents save on their utility bills, which we know are increasing and are going to continue to increase. And also in green spaces, we found that during COVID, our parks and country parks have been hugely useful for residents to find themselves a little closer to nature, peace and calm and quiet, closer to the countryside and the environment. So that's where we're going to be spending some more money as well, because we think that's really important. And of course, green spaces increase carbon capture and promote healthy lifestyles. And in addition, we have invested heavily in electronic vehicle chargers. And last year, we introduced our free tree offer, which was hugely successful and was oversubscribed. We've done the same again this year. And I'm really pleased that it's taken off just as well again this year. So there's lots happening. We do take this very seriously. And in fact, actually, it's a real key part of our whole thinking now. So next question. Daniel in Blythe thinks there should be a bigger budget for road improvements. Richard, would you like to respond to this one, please?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Glenn. So there's no doubt that keeping our roads smooth and safe remains a big challenge for the council. With such a rural county as Northumberland, residents won't be surprised to know that we've got 3,000 miles or so of roads. Our winters can be harsh, and so keeping them in good condition is challenging, but also has to be a priority. We know that it's important that we maintain that network because it connects our communities, and that's why we're spending at least £20 million a year through our government-funded local transport plan to make sure that we keep improving roads and footpaths. We do concentrate to an extent on the more major roads, but it's key that in the local transport plan that we get local councillors identifying issues that are key in their local area. And so if you have the opportunity, Daniel, you need to get onto your local councillor and say which bits are really important to you, where have we got problems, and make sure that we're capturing those and fixing them and getting them right. In the last couple of years, the council added £7.5 million of its own resources out of our capital reserve to make sure that we tackled issues in our minor roads and footpaths as well. And that's something that we're keen to continue the pattern of and make sure that we're doing that. On a more strategic level, of course, we've got some really critical projects that are going to be necessary on our roads. So we've seen investment by the government already in plans to dual A1 north of Morpeth and up to Alnwick and a bit beyond. Outside of Northumberland, of course, if you're a commuter in that southeast corner, we've got funds that have been released from government to improve the Western Bypass, which is not in our area, but we welcome it very much. But we know that we've got problems on some of our key junctions, in particular, places like Moor Farm Roundabout on that southeast corner of Cramlington, which can often grind to a halt, and we are talking with government and the highways agencies to make sure that we get the improvement there. And finally, of course, the Blythe Relief Road is something that's really important to residents in Blythe. If you try to get out of Blythe on Coopan Road or on the Laverick, it can be really challenging at times. And there's money in our budget to implement that road in partnership with government. And there'll be more on that and the plans for that early in this year. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. Certainly, roads are really important, as are paths and walkways and cycleways. It's really important to everyone that we do our best to keep them in good shape. And that's what we do. We have found a lot of extra money, as Richard said, and we will continue to do that. I would like to say, before we go any further, though, just a really big thanks to all our staff who are involved in the frontline services. A lot of them have been working incredible hours, clearing up after Storm Arwen, and now getting back to their roles on fixing our roads and so on. All I would say is a big thanks to each and every one of them for continuing to work through COVID, through awful conditions, and I'm sure that everyone would say thank you to them. Next question is for you, Jan, and it's a recurring theme we do get asked about, which is, why don't we use our reserves instead of making savings? Explain if you can, Jan.
I'll do my best, Leader. So reserves are an important part of the Council's overall financial strategy, and we hold them for a couple of purposes. The first is to ensure long-term financial stability and the ability to manage change without having an undue impact on council tax and seeing sharp increases in council tax from year to year, or sharp changes in our budget from year to year. So they're a way of ensuring that we have both strong financial standing, but also a degree of resilience to weather those changes, because local government finance can be uncertain. And that brings me to the second reason why we hold reserves, which is to help us manage financial risk. So we hold reserves which are earmarked for specific purposes, but we also hold a general reserve, which allows us to deal with things that can't be predicted or are not necessarily foreseen, and manage our cash flow and ensure that we don't have to undertake unnecessary temporary borrowing in order to manage the finances. So over time, we have built up a very healthy level of reserves, but we do keep them under review. We review them every year. As the council's chief finance officer, I'm required to make an annual assessment and a statement about the adequacy of reserves. And so, I and my team review them to make sure that they are still required and that they're at an appropriate level. But the council does regularly draw down on those reserves, both to finance expenditure commitments. So, for example, one-off expenditure, one-off investment, and the council is investing heavily through its capital programme in infrastructure. So that's one way in which we use our reserves, but we also use our reserves to smooth the revenue budget and deliver our medium-term financial plan. But at the end of the day, use of reserves is not a substitute for the measures that we have to take to ensure that we can live within our means and continue to set a balanced budget. Because once reserves have been used up and they're gone, we still have to be able to finance our services. So it's about striking the right balance.
So we need money in the bank to be there for a rainy day, but not too much, not too little, and only to be used sparingly because they only can get spent once. That is a very sound way forward, definitely. Thanks, Jan. So the next question is actually around our ongoing consultation. Many people think we should be spending more on adults and children's services. So perhaps, Richard, you could give us an idea of how much we do spend as a percentage, and what are the plans ahead for spending on these two really important areas.
Thanks, Glenn. So caring for vulnerable people in our community is a top priority for the council, and it always will be under our administration. We're already committed in terms of schools and education to carrying out a raft of further school improvements, and we mentioned a few of them earlier, the likes of Seaton Valley, of Berwick, and at James Calvert Spence, and that's on the top already of a lot of improvements that we've made in previous years in places like Ponteland and Hexham, to name but two. You could add Haydenbridge and others into that. And that's really important because we want, ultimately, we want children to have the best start in life and be prepared for all of these fantastic employment opportunities that are starting to come into our economy after so many years of waiting. In terms of increased employment, that's something that's quite critical to us as well, and that ultimately comes out of that bit on schools. In terms of other spending on children's services, a key one that comes up time and again from residents is regarding SEND and making sure that we've got more opportunities for SEND students to learn in county and not have to travel outside of the county long distances, which is trying for them and for their families. And so we're achieving that with some help from government and a lot of activity of our own. We've got as well, of course, the question was touching on adult services. We've got an aging population. We've got a lot of older people that live in Northumberland compared to other areas. And so that's a key area of spend for us as well. We're making sure that we've got plans in place to keep people working in the care sector. COVID's been really challenging for the care sector. It's been a big problem in terms of staff retention. So just recently, the Cabinet has made a decision to make sure that we're paying the real living wage in that sector, and to keep people working there, to make sure that we're able to deliver those care packages for people where they're living in their homes, and to deliver care for the elderly where they're living in residential homes as well. These two sectors make by far and away the biggest percentage of our budget in terms of our spend, and that reflects the level of importance that we give to them. And our inspections show from when they're done by the various government agencies that we're seeing a huge improvement in our schools. They're shooting up the league tables. We're doing much better in that space now, and similarly our care homes and our care packages are considered to be of a very high quality.
Okay, thank you, Richard. Did you want to add anything to that, Jan, or is that okay?
Just to add to that, Leader, that adults and children's does account for more than 80% of the council's overall budget. So as Councillor Wearmouth said, it is a key priority, and we are funding a host of cost pressures as well as demographic pressures there. The savings that we are looking to take from those areas are efficiencies, because there is always room to do things more efficiently. So there are no plans to target any reductions in frontline services, but as residents would expect, you know, we are asking those services to make their contributions in terms of day-to-day efficiencies.
Good, thank you. Next question is around council tax. Lee from Ashington says we should be paying less council tax. And if I could just pick this one up, just to say that we are facing significant increase in costs for a wide range of the services that we provide. So, you know, on diesel fuel, for example, on our gritters, the cost of salt, the cost of raw materials, electricity we know is going up and will continue to go up. It looks fairly likely that it will be significantly increased. So we've got these increased costs, but at the same time, it's really important to us that we don't skimp on the way we look after the county as we do at the moment. Travelling around, it's clear that Northumberland is a fantastic place to live, to visit and to work, that is really well looked after in terms of picking the litter, cutting the grass, fixing potholes. Of course, we could do much better if we had lots more money, but with the money that we've got, I think we do a fantastic job. And again, it's down to our staff who have done brilliantly. So it's very much against all our wishes to cut frontline services, which is why that we will be going for an increase of 2%, so that we can meet the costs that we've got, those extra costs, but at the same time continue to do the work that I think you want us to do, which is to make sure that Northumberland is a lovely place in which to work, to live and to visit. So that's pretty much an option that is clear to us, that we must continue to do that, and that's what we plan to do. The last question for this session is, why can't we reintroduce car parking charges in more areas for visitors to generate more income? And if I can just answer this one myself quickly, our key priorities for the council are to motivate and encourage new business, to support existing business, and to look after those people who need our help the most. Those are the key priorities, and everything that we do will be aligned to those. So that second one, which is around supporting business, is why we have not charged for car parking, and we have no plans to introduce car parking charges in our town centres, because it is definitely something that people appreciate, that they can pop into Ashington or Morpeth and do their shopping or get their hair done and so on, and they won't have to pay a penny to park their car. And that's really important that we continue to do that for the sake of those businesses that we want to keep going and to keep thriving in many places. So that's why we won't touch car parking charges in town centres. However, we do recognise that visitors visiting places like Sea Houses and Bamburgh and Craster, our key tourist areas, ought to pay a charge to be able to come and enjoy those places. So that's why we are charging a realistic rate there, because we need that money, we need that funding. So that's why we are very careful and have considered very carefully all our options. And whilst we think it's quite correct to charge for visitor spaces on Holy Island and so on, it's not the right thing to do for our town centres, and that's what we're going to stick to. So before we finish today, it would be really useful, Jan, if you could give us a quick roundup of what happens next in the budget setting process, please.
Yes, leader. So we're currently seeking the views of residents through the online budget consultation, and that closes on the 21st of January. And we'll also be discussing the budget proposals with local area councils over the next couple of weeks. So at the end of this month, we'll consider all of the views and feedback that we've received. We'll also have had the final outcome of the local government settlement, because it's only provisional at this stage. So we need to wait for government to confirm our funding allocation, and then we can finalise our budget proposals and start to bring them through the formal committee process. So the next key date will be for Cabinet to consider the draft proposals on the 8th of February, and the final budget proposals will go before full council for discussion and agreement on February 23rd. That's great. Thank you, Jan. Could I just remind everyone that there's still time to get involved in this online budget consultation. It's open till the 21st of January, and you can go on to haveyoursay.northumberland.gov.uk. Please do that, because it's really important that we hear what you have to say, and those thoughts will play a part in setting the budget for this coming year. So thank you again for getting involved. We do really appreciate it, and I hope you found this session useful